It's Thursday, August 11. In the headlines, a fourth case of monkeypox has been confirmed. Regionally, St. Lucia's Prime Minister pledges to reduce crime. Internationally, fire in Cuba's main oil depot under control. And in sports, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price wins gold again. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I am Simone Absalom Gale. The Ministry of Education and Youth started its series of consultations on students' dress and grooming this week. The objective is to develop a policy for educational institutions that balances students' rights while complying with school rules. The first consultation was held at Jamaica College in Kingston and involved school leaders and deans of discipline. Minister of Education and Youth Favour Williams says the policy framework will, quote, clarify the ministry's stance and will seek to reduce discriminatory practices in schools while addressing the need for discipline and the development of societal values, end quote. She noted that every institution will be required to review and document its own guidelines in keeping with the policy. Some school leaders had raised questions about acceptable disciplinary measures for students who disobey dress and grooming rules. A fourth case of monkeypox has been confirmed in the country. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the patient is currently isolated at home and the parish health department has commenced its contact tracing. This new case has been classified as locally transmitted. That is, the patient has no recent travel history and was not in contact with the 3 previously announced cases. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, monkeypox is a rare disease caused by infection with the monkeypox virus. The monkeypox virus is a part of the same family of viruses as variola virus, which causes smallpox with similar symptoms to smallpox but milder and rarely fatal. People with monkeypox get a rash that may be located on or near the genitals and could be on other areas like the hands, feet, chest, face, or mouth. Other symptoms of monkeypox can include fever, chills, swollen lymph nodes, exhaustion, muscle aches and backache, headache, respiratory symptoms such as sore throat, nasal congestion, or cough. World Health Organization Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus says the monkeypox outbreak can be stopped if countries, communities, and individuals inform themselves and they take the risks seriously.
That means making safe choices for yourself and others. For men who have sex with men, this includes, for the moment, reducing your number of sexual partners, reconsidering sex with new partners, and exchanging contact details with any new partners to enable follow-up if needed. Although 98% of cases so far are among men who have sex with men, anyone exposed can get monkeypox, which is why WHO recommends that countries take action to reduce the risk of transmission to other vulnerable groups, including children, pregnant women, and those who are immunosuppressed. In addition to transmission through sexual contact, monkeypox can be spread in households through close contact between people, such as hugging and kissing, and on contaminated towels or bedding. WHO recommends target vaccination for those exposed to someone with monkeypox and for those at high risk of exposure, including health workers, some lab workers, and those with multiple sexual partners.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is praising the investments of private sector companies in the real estate market. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for Villa Ranai on Wednesday, he said their investment is significant to urban development.
So this process of constantly reinvesting in your real estate, in your built environment, not just building new buildings, but regenerating the buildings that have been there. It's a very important process, and for many decades, I would posit that for at least 30 years, this process of reinvesting in our existing built infrastructure slowed down to a point where many of our communities have reached this point of urban decay and are in need of serious investment for renewals.
Mr. Holness notes that the current infrastructure in some areas have not been maintained.
The longer that stays, the greater will be what we call urban blight. The greater will be the deterioration of our built environment, which drives away lifestyle. And when I use the term lifestyle, people immediately would associate that as fashion. But there is a fusion between the built environment and how people live. Right? A good built environment increases welfare and well-being.
His words spoke to the metamorphic development of Villaranai over the years. The built property has been around since the 1940s, and it's now being redeveloped into a $6 billion 30-unit housing development and opening of its lifestyle village.
Villaranai was construction started in the 1940s as well. And the property remains beautiful, remains true to its original vision because you have maintained it. So you have kept the value in the property to pass on for generations and generations. Unfortunately, this is not the case in many areas in Kingston.
The Prime Minister stressed that with real estate having emerged as significant to the country's recovery, the process must be guided.
Last year we had several complaints. Several matters came before the courts, and obviously the government took very careful note of the pronouncements. And so we have been working to improve. I haven't heard so much complaints going forward, but I know that there are still issues. But we're working behind the scenes because it's a delicate balance. We don't want to kill off the real estate industry because that is a key driver of our current recovery and economic growth.
Qualified National Housing Trust contributors are being reminded that they have until the end of the year to submit refund applications. Corporate and Public Affairs Manager Dwayne Burbick says once a refund period becomes available at the beginning of the calendar year, applications can be done anytime during the 12 months. The NHT is now refunding contributions made in 2014 or earlier. Applications can only be done online from anywhere in the world using the NHT's mobile application or via the organization's website. The app is available for download through App Store and Google Play Store. He's also urging contributors to submit error-free applications and have their national insurance scheme and tax registration number on hand to complete the application. The Jamaica Defence Force will be conducting live firing exercises at the Twickenham Park Gallery Range in the parish of St. Catherine over the period Thursday, August 11 through to Friday, August 12, 2022. The JDF is advising residents that there is no need to be alarmed by the presence of soldiers. However, they're asked to secure livestock until the end of the training and also not to interfere with and/or move security flags and notifications. In the event that unexploded ordnances or paraphernalia are found, please report it to the JDF headquarters at telephone number 876-926-8121. Members of the public who may have concerns about the presence of soldiers in their area may contact the JDF. In the business report, gas prices are down by $4. We have more in this report, plus other updates from Danita Rodney.
Motorists should see a decrease at the pumps in the prices of gasoline and diesel effective Thursday, August 11, according to the latest ex-refinery costs from Petrojam. With both grades down by $4.50, 87-octane gasoline will be sold for $209.36 per liter, and 90-octane gasoline will be sold for $214.38 per liter. Automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $224.76 per liter. Ultra-low sulfur diesel will be sold for $231.75 per liter after a 25 cents decrease. Also decreased by 25 cents, kerosene will be sold for $203.30 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will be sold for $65.18 per liter, down by $2.53, and butane liquid petroleum will be sold for $73.18 per liter after a decrease of $2.13. Remember that marketing companies and retailers will add their own respective markups to these prices. Fostridge Company Limited has reported strong growth in the 6 months to the end of June. Financials showed net profit grew 160% to $298 million, with revenues reaching a record of $1.8 billion for the half year, and the company says that more growth is to come. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, August 10, the US dollar sold for an average of $153.07. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $119.50. The pound sterling traded for $186.17, and the euro sold for an average of $158.83. The following reflects the movement of the JSE indices in Wednesday's trading session. The JSE index declined by 1,624 points to close at over 300,000 units. The junior market index declined by 107 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index declined by 2,488 points to close at over 300,000 units. And the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 3,397 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 108 stocks, of which 33 advanced, 63 declined, and 12 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Blue Power Group Limited, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cream Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited Verbal Preference, and Access Financial Services Limited. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and Jamaica Public Service Company 9.5%. The following companies represent the overall volume leaders: Dollar Financial Services Limited with over 2 million units, Jamaican Teas Limited, and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 1 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Clico Investment Fund was the volume leader with over 80,000 shares, followed by Calypso Macro Index Fund with a volume of 177 shares being traded. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Government of Barbados Bond Series B was the volume leader with over 12,000 shares. They were followed by Goddard Enterprises Limited, trading over 3,000 shares. In international business, as of Wednesday, European Union member states can no longer import coal from Russia. This follows a fifth sanction package on Moscow. To cope with the high turn away from Russian energy, EU countries are setting power consumption caps. More from Al Jazeera News.
This coal being unloaded in the German town of Rheinbach is from Russia, part of one of the last consignments to Germany before the EU embargo took hold. Until recently, much of the energy used in Germany came from Russian fossil fuels. But now its coal is banned, its oil is soon to follow, and far less of its gas is being piped here than was planned. Meaning across the country, much of industry is having to contemplate buying fossil fuels from elsewhere.
I think there will be only a temporal return of the coal-fired power plants to the market. So this is not a long-term solution. This is a solution for the next 3, maybe 4 years, which is a significant contribution to solving the gas problem or the security of supply problem, but it is not a sustainable long-term perspective.
The difficulty for the German government is that many of its leaders have spent much of their political lives looking to phase out fossil fuels, and yet they now find themselves having to buy them in on a short-term basis.
We see how dependent we are on energy imports from all over the world, and in this case especially from Russia. It's important to know that we in Germany have technical abilities that are realistic and produce economically functioning jobs and economic economic value which can help us free ourselves from this dependency and defend our own sovereignty.
But saying that and doing that are two different things, because very many power stations and industries have based their plans on an uninterrupted delivery of coal and more often gas, such as here at the Röders aluminium foundry in Soltau, where rising gas prices mean managers are having to change their working practices.
Starting up a foundry like this, heating up the furnace, is very energy intensive. So shutting it down in the evening or overnight, and then heating it up again in the morning, is crazily expensive. That's why we now either run it around the clock in 3 shifts or shut it off completely.
In market data for oil prices rose after the International Energy Agency raised its oil demand growth forecast for this year as soaring gas prices drive some consumers to switch to oil. Brent crude futures gained $1.04 to $98.44 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose $1.03 to $92.96. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, in St. Kitts and Nevis, new Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew reveals progress made since his first day in office.
In his first official interview since being sworn in as Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Terence Drew revealed a number of things, including that on his first official day of work, he made progress with some of his campaign promises. One is sourcing an MRI machine for the hospital, and also that the COVID-19 travel restrictions will be lifted in short order. The Prime Minister spoke to SK Newsline in an exclusive interview at his office on government headquarters Tuesday, August 9th.
For example, with respect to the MRI, I told them that would be one of the first things that I will do. Also, the lifting of the ban with respect to COVID and traveling, I have also dealt with that.
So as it stands right now, with the restrictions, the travel restrictions that are in place, they are no longer in place.
Lifted, I've ordered that they be lifted. They'll be lifted very quickly.
Okay. So
yes.
Sometime this week we should get an announcement.
Yes, right. And they will be lifted. And I met with the task force, and I'm happy to report that based on the scientific data, we can do it. So we are doing it safely as well. I also said that the children who needed medical care and whose parents couldn't afford it, that is one of the issues that I brought to the Ministry of Finance, and that one I will also pursue vigorously. And we also looking at what we'll do with the students. So those things that we have promised, I've always said that they had been looked at by our economic team, so they were never pie in the sky type of things.
Prime Minister Drew also disclosed that his cabinet will be sworn in on Saturday at 4 p.m. at the Warner Park. He did not reveal all the assignment of portfolios, but he did disclose that he would be the Minister of Health and that Dr. Jeffrey Hanley would be Minister of Education.
No hint as to who will be getting what portfolios, because we've seen some circulations going around.
Well, that is not reflective of what I have planned. But I can clearly say that people know Dr. Jeffrey Hanley will be the Minister of Education. I'll give away that one.
All right, okay. And Minister of Health, I know you've been campaigning on health a lot.
Well, very likely, I can also say that I will take health. Yes.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister also officially confirmed that he assigned security detail and a vehicle to former Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris.
My first act was really with dealing with the former Prime Minister. As I've said before, I have nothing personal against him. Everything I said was fair and factual in the campaign, and I was asked about his security and his vehicle, and I've said to the Commissioner of Police that he should be left with a vehicle and he should be given security. I am not interested in what the former Prime Minister did with the Prime Minister before him. I criticized what he did and said it was wrong, and so now I am in the position, I have the opportunity to set a new paradigm, and that I have done. And I've extended that courtesy to him. And I'm also inviting him to the inauguration. He's a former head of state, and I think he deserves to be invited as well.
The Public Service Union, PSU, says it is prepared to stage industrial action at the Argyle International Airport, AIA, if management does not address numerous concerns expressed by PSU members. PSU President Elroy Boucher notes that the organization had requested dialogue with management of the AIA, and there has been no favorable response for over 2 years. The issues on the agenda are sick leave, COVID-19 leave, compassionate leave, health and safety conditions of workers, lack of an increase in wages for 5 years, non-renewal of uniforms, and unfair dismissals.
So there's a lot of issues that are occurring at the Argyle International Airport. The union have been patient with the management. And we have been patient simply because the airport at the time knew. We wanted to give time so that all the teething problems can be dealt with. And we did not want to create any major issues given the fact that we are just moving to an international airport. That time has since done. What the management have done is taken advantage of the fact that we were looking at the national interests while giving them time to settle themselves. Now I'm putting this out to the media, to the public, because on the 29th of this month, we should commence negotiations on the collective agreement. But if these issues are not addressed, there will be industrial action at the AIA. We will shut down the airport at certain points in time. And the public is going to be affected. But I want the public to understand, taking industrial action is always a last resort. And the Public Service Union have been patient to the extent that the workers themselves think that we are not doing enough on their behalf.
In Trinidad and Tobago, a rise in COVID-19 related hospitalizations has prompted the reactivation of 2 step-down facilities. Minister of Health Terence Dayal Singh made the announcement at Wednesday's Ministry of Health media conference.
This will allow patients who are just on the cusp of being discharged to go into a step-down facility as we used to have, so that they could spend their final 2 to 3 days, 4 days in a step-down facility that will then make room at the hospital level for people who need to be warded.
The health minister noted that the Point Fortin Area Hospital and the UTT Valsain facility were chosen and will introduce a total of 75 beds for step-down patients. The minister explained that the team will continue to look at figures to determine any further action.
As the situation progresses, as we look at the numbers on a daily basis, we will make other decisions if they need to be made.
In St. Lucia, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre vows action to ensure the safety and security of citizens. The Prime Minister was responding to questions posed by the media in statements made by the island's Police Commissioner Milton Desir prior to clarifications via press release regarding seeking external help to fight crime.
Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre states that there's no short-term solution to the crime situation. Neither was he able to predict if the crime issue would be solved tomorrow, but had this to say to reporters outside Parliament on Tuesday, August 9th.
It's a process. It's a process of prevention. It's a process of trying our best to avoid, and it's also a process of solving. It's an entire process. But there have been some successes. Yesterday somebody was arrested for the murder in Saltibus. There have been some small successes, but it's surely not enough, and we have to fight it out.
In light of the island's growing homicide figures, various media outlets quoted the island's Police Commissioner Milton Desir as having called for regional and international help to fight crime. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force on Tuesday clarified Desir's statement via a press release, stating that he was at the time speaking in relation to forensic analysis, and Desir referenced the recent arrest of a suspect in the murder of Mary Julietta Charles of Lapel, Saltibus. According to the press release, Desir stated that this homicide was resolved due to forensic analysis, which was sought outside the island. In light of this, Commissioner Daisy stated that further aid is required externally to bring about resolution to some crimes committed locally.
In international news, 5 days after it began, a huge fire in Cuba's main oil depot seems to finally be under control. Rescue workers have entered the disaster zone for the first time to search for missing firefighters. But with millions already living through chronic power cuts, the damage done is threatening to make the energy crisis on the island even worse. More from Al Jazeera News.
On Sunday, an exploding fireball so great it could be seen 100 kilometers away in Havana. But by Tuesday evening, the smoke had turned from soot black to light grey. Evidence that much of the large fire at Cuba's main oil depot was out. But with a thick, toxic smog over the city of Matanzas, people are still worried.
I'm covered up because I see the clouds. I smell the sulfur, and I don't want this to affect me in the future.
We're expecting the situation to worsen. The oil, everything that was lost or damaged, like oil reserves, everything will be harder now.
The Cuban Air Force used helicopters, manufactured in the Soviet era, to douse the flames. But more modern technology was needed. Mexico and Venezuela sending more than 100 specialists, technology, and tons of extinguishing foam. But material support did not come from the United States, upsetting many.
The US offered technical assistance, but in the end, we haven't seen anything concrete.
I think it's a lack of humanity above all, because we're not talking about a political issue, we're talking about a humanitarian issue.
In the 2020 US presidential campaign trail, Joe Biden had promised to reverse the sanctions former President Donald Trump imposed on the island. But in office, the bulk of them have remained in place, including sanctions on oil tankers, which aggravate the island's energy crisis. Legal experts say US law does not prevent the United States from providing material assistance. 4 days after a lightning strike hit Cuba's biggest oil storage facility, the blaze finally seems to be under control. But analysts say the loss of 4 supertankers will only aggravate Cuba's already critical energy crisis. With most flames extinguished, rescue workers have now entered the disaster zone for the first time to search for missing firefighters. And while the lights are still on for some, Cuba's energy crisis is set to become critical. Ed Augustin, Al Jazeera, Matanzas, Cuba.
In sports, reigning world 100-meter champion Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce had no words to express how she felt about her performance at the Monaco Diamond League meeting on Wednesday, after producing a scintillating 10.62 seconds to boast the top 6 times over the distance this season. She tweeted, quote, "I don't have the words yet to describe how I'm feeling. # God is good," end quote. Fraser-Pryce came out ahead of her compatriot Shericka Jackson to win the event in the new world lead. Jackson, who is the reigning 200-meter champion, was second in a new personal best time of 10.71 seconds. Marie Toulouse of the Ivory Coast finished third in a lifetime best and African record of 10.72. The West Indies women under-19 squad bounced back from their opening series loss to the United States by winning Game 2 and leveling the series.
The USA won the toss under the lights at the Broward County Stadium in Florida and elected to bowl first. The Windies batters were careful and deliberated in amassing 100 for the loss of 4 wickets in 20 overs, with opener Shalini Samaru top scoring with 40 not out. A robust 20 off 12 balls from a savvy Calendar was the other score of note. In reply, the home team was under pressure in the early stages due to some tight bowling with excellent fielding in support. By the 7th over, they were 21 for 4, with KD Jazz Mitchell doing most of the damage. She ended with figures of 3 for 8 in her 4 overs at the top of the innings. But the USA began plucking away at the total, and the match came down to the last over, where the West Indies held on to register a 1-run win.
That's it for the news on PBCJ. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.